All right, guys, we are back again for another one. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Welcome back to the channel. Captain Cody Davis here with you guys for another one. And if your audio sounds a little funny, it's not. I am just crazy congested right now, dealing with another crazy sinus infection. I feel like I get one of these things every week now, and it mainly has to do with the insanely unstable weather we've been dealing with down here in South Florida over the last couple of months. Literally Monday will be a north wind at 30, blowing in cold air, dry air, high pressure system, the whole nine. And then the next morning I wake up and it's blowing out of the south at 15. The air temperature's risen 20 degrees. It's cloudy, it's rainy, it's humid. And then the next morning it's back to a north wind with dry, cold, high pressure system. Driving my sinuses, allergies, you name it, just all kinds of wacky. And yeah, so I just keep sounding like this and feeling like crap. But either way, speaking of unstable weather, today was supposed to be the Jimmy McMillan Memorial Tournament that we have annually down here on Lake Okeechobee. But they decided to cancel the event 2 days ago, being that today's forecast was calling for 25 to 35 mile an hour winds sustained throughout the entire day, with sporadic lightning storms popping up from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And instead, we haven't had a lick of wind. It has been slick calm all day. It is extremely overcast, warm, with no rain. So the weatherman was totally wrong. You know, on the family side, they were probably smart to go ahead and, cancel the event. Just better be safe than sorry. But you could not ask for a better fishing day for out on Okeechobee than what we have today. A big part of me was very tempted to hook the boat up and head to the lake and go give it a shot, but I've got to be working all this week, so I decided to just take a lay day, hang out around the house, relax, and try to get over this illness I'm dealing with. So instead, I'm going to showcase you guys a bait that's been producing pretty good for me out on Okeechobee, something a little bit different than I typically throw. So you guys might want to give it a shot. I'm going to talk to you guys about it. So what I've got here is I've got a 6-inch Mike Buka bull shad. I believe this is the slow sinking model, or maybe the floating. I think it's the slow sinking. And this is the 6-inch version, jointed swim bait. Okay. You guys don't see me throw a big bait or big swim bait very much on the channel, and that's because I just don't really throw them. This is something I've been playing around with. I've got my hands on a few of the different bull shad swim baits, and I love them. They're great. But for whatever reason, this is the one that has been producing the most for me. And I'll kind of get into how I've been using it, and that might be part of the reason why I've been having more success with it. So for a lot of you that aren't familiar with the bull shad line of baits, they've got a full array of different styles of baits from 5 to 8 inches. They make big glide baits. They make bluegill patterns. I've got another jointed. This is a 7-inch. This is a fast sinking one. You guys might be familiar with this one. I know Mikey Balls used to catch a lot of big fish on this guy here. I mean, listen, there's a lot of big swim baits on the market anymore. I know that a lot of people collect them. All right, there's some that literally look like if you throw them in the water, they're going to swim away. But I mean, that's pretty damn pretty to me. I mean, that's as close to a gizzard shad to me as you really need to get, especially in a jointed swim bait. They look great in the water. They swim awesome. So again, this is the 7-inch that I've got. I usually have this one hanging right here. I'm actually going to hang it back because there's in my opinion, a time and a place for this guy. This guy right here, there's a couple things that really keyed me into this one. And one thing that's probably going to catch most of your guys' attention is this thing is super manageable. And what I mean by that is, when you're talking about getting into throwing the big baits, which is kind of like a common trend that's been going on as of late on social media, you almost have to get a certain setup, a swim bait or glide bait rod with a certain reel, maybe a 300 size reel, a little bit bigger than average, certain type of line, and it's basically a setup that you have to dedicate to throwing a big bait on. Whereas with this guy, the 6-inch here, the slow sinking, it's super manageable. I've been throwing this guy on a 7.3 or even mainly a 7.6 medium heavy rod with a 7.2, 7.3 to 1 reel with 50-pound braid on it, and it throws just fine. I have absolutely had no issue throwing it. It doesn't weigh very much. Is it a little bit awkward while throwing it? Yeah, just because of the profile, but it throws just fine. You could be pretty damn accurate with it, which we'll get into. And yeah, so it's definitely something you might want to check out. They do make a 5-inch, but I am a fan of trying to use a little bit bigger baits. I feel like they have more drawing power. That's kind of the allure with the big glide baits and such anymore. But this guy's kind of right in the middle, and it's been working awesome for me. This particular one, whatever color this is, has been working great. So here's the deal. So when it comes to throwing a big swim bait, a big jointed swim bait, or a big glide bait, I've played with the glides. I've caught a couple of fish out on the lake with them, but that's not my forte. Obviously, if I got in the boat with someone like Mike Bucca, or there's probably a lot of you watching my channel that you guys seek out this type of bite, I'm sure there's tons to learn, and there's probably a lot of things I'm doing wrong. I've caught some fish, but I've not had what I would consider great success. It's no knock on the bait or anything. It's just user error for sure. But what's cool about this thing is I've almost been throwing it not the way it was intended to be thrown. All right. This bait, being the 6-inch size it is, the slow sinking, and it being jointed, it's super, super versatile. And I've almost been throwing this bait almost more like a topwater presentation or like a spook style presentation than anything. So what's really neat about it is I've been throwing this bait up to isolated cover, being arrowheads or cattails or round reeds, anywhere where a fish may or may not be spawning, or just something that a fish is holding to. And letting that bait hit the water and almost just kind of chopping the reel or the rod and keeping the bait in place. So what tends to happen is this bait is, extremely slow sinking. I've been throwing it on braid. I had a little piece of 20-pound mono on there, a little tippet of 12-inch 20-pound or 25-pound mono, I don't remember, just to keep the trebs from fouling. But that 50-pound braid floats the bait pretty good, but a 50-pound isn't as thick, so your bait's very responsive when you turn the handle. There's not a lot of drag before getting to the bait, so I like the 50-pound. But what I've been doing is just making fast, sporadic turns of the handle, even little twitches of the rod. And essentially what this bait's doing is I'm kind of just like slashing it. I tried to get GoPro footage in my pond of doing the action, but it came out horrible. But essentially the bait will almost try to turn around and do a 180 in one spot. But what's happening is, because you're making such small turns of the handle on a slack line, is the front of the bait is almost just kind of slapping. And it almost looks like just an injured or dying shad. Obviously, with the big white profile like this, they might think it's a injured tilapia, what have you, an injured bait fish, more or less. And it's just kind of slashing in place. It's causing a lot of commotion, but it's not moving forward. It's staying right in the same area, which I think pisses the fish off. You're staying in the strike zone, and enables that fish to rise up to the bait. And what's really cool, the way they've been eating this has been almost like an effortless bite. And what I mean by it is they're just coming up under it, and it's just like they're just sucking the thing in. It's not a very violent strike, which a lot of people tend to like or judge a bait off of, but they're just coming up, and I mean, I really think that they think this is the real deal, and they're just effortlessly inhaling the whole bait, which has been awesome. And then, obviously I'll give the bait a few sporadic motions. It's going to walk either from left to right and slash and do its thing. And you can work the bait like crazy and only make the bait move away from the cover literally 8 to 12 inches, which is cool. Like I said, you're keeping it in the strike zone. But then obviously with a few quick turns of the handle, you can make that bait wake and just give that crazy fleeing presentation, which obviously will trigger some more strikes. And then obviously, once I work the bait away from the piece of cover, you could obviously either burn it or just slowly wake this bait right under the surface. And it throws a really crazy head wake. If you reel it really fast, it will dive down I don't know, just a few inches under the surface, which I think helps. They don't have to completely commit to coming up on top. And it looks awesome. So you're covering water back to the boat, but you can kind of just make this bait dance around a piece of isolated cover, and they wreck it. As aside from throwing like an actual spook or a frog or something along those lines, they don't, if you stop the bait, it will slowly sink down just a couple of inches under the surface. And that a lot of times is, I think, a big key into just making that fish commit to get the bait. Again, I'm throwing it, predominantly on a 7/6 medium heavy. Nothing crazy. It's just the same rod that I throw my swim jig and my worms on, but I've been throwing it on 50-pound braid, and you do or you don't have to use that little piece of leader. I've just been doing it to keep the bait from fouling, but it really honestly never fouls. And a 7-3-to-1 ratio, I think, is key. You can maybe even go up to an 8 if you'd like, but I'm not a big fan of 8 speed reels. But that little higher speed enables you to make those quick handle turns and make that bait do all those sporadic movements and dance in place. And I think that's been key, like I said, to getting the bite. So it makes them in all different types of colors. You can experiment and try to do this with the much larger bait. But once you get up to that 7 and 8 inch, it's really hard to throw it on just a traditional 7/6 rod. You really need a special outfit to do that, which there's nothing wrong with. I went ahead and did pick one up, a big glide bait rod, and been still experimenting. But this one's just a really good one to get started with. Again, you can cover water, you can wake it, you can burn it, you can make it dance. It's just a very, very versatile bait. So if you're just trying to get into swim baiting or throwing a big bait, I suggest giving this one a shot. Caught a lot of fish out here on Okeechobee with it as of late, and it's been really fun to play with. So check it out. Again, it's the 6-inch. I don't even know if this is the right pack. I believe this is the slow sink bull shad, and they've got all different types of color patterns, so definitely look them up. And yeah, the other thing I will throw in there before I finish is my landing ratio has been very good. When they designed this bait, they have the swiveling treble hooks on there, which is key. So when they get this bait, they're pinned. I haven't been losing hardly any fish on it, which is a giant bonus. So check them out. Pretty cool, something different, something you don't throw every day, something the fish out here definitely don't see every day. I know the big swim baits are kind of taking the industry by storm, so something just definitely to keep in the back of your mind to play around with. So give them a shot. If you want to come book a trip to kind of try to throw these guys around, let me know. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Tight lines and take care.